right, we are live. Hello. Here we go. All right, we are talking about living with messy people. So fun. This topic, one, like everyone has somebody messy in their house. So we're going to cover some strategies, 10 to be exact, 10 strategies for living with messy people. My tip for you is to figure out which strategies will work for you and then use those strategies in your home so that you can easily, kind of work with the messy people in your house. Now, we have messy people in our house. There are lots of messy people in here. I can even be one at times. So some of these strategies are going to be the strategies that I use. There are strategies that I've used when I was teaching. There are strategies I use with in-home clients, with virtual clients, and strategies I suggest with my readers. So make sure that you take note of what strategies you are going to try, test them out, see how they work. So messy people. The first strategy to dealing with messy people is to organize your entire house for the least organized person. I know this sounds so counterintuitive because you're like, well, I'm the one organizing. I should organize it for me. Well, not if you are going to be the one and the only one to take care of all the organizing for your entire house. If you want to be the sole one responsible for keeping everything organized, including your kids' bedrooms, shared spaces, all of that, then go ahead and you organize everything to how you like it. But if that's not you, then you need to find out who your least organized person is and then organize the space for them. I will give you an example. Well, my husband, love him to death, but not always super tidy. So he likes to, just kind of like leave clothes all over the place. So one thing I've done, like I don't like the laundry basket out in our bedroom. I always trip over it. It doesn't always work out. So we have a basket for him that's out that is for, kind of like his in-between clothes. That basket is where all of his clothes can go. And then on laundry day, which is Saturday or Sunday, he has to sort through all of those things to figure out what's clean and what's dirty. Not my problem. Again, it's not my thing. It's just like how it is. And so he then has a spot for it. So I don't have clothes all over the floor that I have to see or deal with, but he has a place for them where, he doesn't always make the clothes into the laundry basket, which is in our closet. It's not like it's that difficult to do. For my kiddos, their lunch boxes and stuff for school. I have organized them so it's just out. They can see where it goes. It is easy to get to. Everything is like streamlined for them so that they can access it super easy, which is why I've organized the place for them. So I'm the one, since I'm organized, I can change my habits to better suit, myself, and like what the kids, and so then I can change my habits. Because I can change my habits, I can set up any organizational system and I will stick to it. They won't, which is why you organize for the least organized person. I've had a client, her kids I said that they were super organized, to still believe it. They would come in, empty their backpacks on her kitchen counter because they came in that way, like you come in through their kitchen. So they just dumped their backpacks out on the kitchen and she hated it. So like, she was like, they're just so disorganized. I was like, actually, they're not. They're really organized that they know and they have a spot for their stuff. So we just had to get like clear on like the boundaries of where to dump all the papers. So that one little fix, we got like a basket that just like went on the counter when the kids came home from school. They just dumped their stuff into the basket. And then she didn't have to worry about like stuff everywhere. It was like contained to a spot. They knew where to go. So she created a system organized for who she thought was the least organized in her house. Because of that, like, she didn't lose papers, she didn't have things going everywhere, which is why organizing for the least organized person is going to work for you. Most things work that way. Not everything will. If you have people that are like pushing back and really like fighting you on it, that's a whole other thing. But if you see what they're doing, like let's say you have teenagers, I had a couple of clients that we did this with. We had teenagers and they just didn't enjoy being organized. So the rule was their stuff from their bedroom could not creep into the hallway. Whatever took place in their bedroom took place in their bedroom. She wasn't going to jump in and do any of that. So there was a rule, and that's how she organized her house. It was for them to like, you can be as messy as you want in your room. I don't care. But when you're outside, you have to follow these rules. And the kids totally did. And no pushback whatsoever, because she didn't say what could go on in their bedroom. She did have one rule. There was no eating in their bedroom, because she's like, if you are going to clean up, then you won't get to eat in your room. She didn't want bugs, and that I don't blame her. That's a thing. So because she set that rule and she's like, I don't care what you do in your bedroom, just no eating in your bedroom, but your stuff can't creep into the floor or into the hallway. The second it does, whatever's in the hallway gets thrown away. So the kids never did any of that, but then they followed the rules by like putting dishes in the dishwasher and all of that kind of stuff, because they felt like they had control over something. So that's another easy way to help with like disorganized or messy people in your household. My second tip is to label everything. I am a huge over labeler. If you've been following along even for like a hot minute, you know that because you've seen all of my stuff that's like super labeled. I truly believe that when you label everything, it just is easier, more streamlined. Everyone can follow it. Like you say, all spoons go here, and you label it with spoons. Yeah, it is totally an over label thing, but it doesn't matter because it says spoons go here and there is no question. Well, I didn't know where to put it, so I didn't put it away. If you've heard that before, put labels on everything. Like, I'm not even kidding. Use the, little return address labels, print off, go through your kitchen, print off everything, put it on each like drawer divider, on each drawer, like on the inside. So everyone knows what goes where. It's an easy fix. You don't have the questions, and things are just, much easier and more streamlined when it is labeled. And then the messy people aren't going to be like, well, I didn't put it away because I didn't know where it went. You did, because there's a label. So that's never going to be an excuse after that, because you've already said, too bad, there's a label, so you don't get to say you didn't know where it went. Tip number 3, don't create a junk drawer or a place that is just like a collection zone. Okay. If you have messy people, if you have disorganized people, if you have people that you just don't see eye to eye with what organizing is, then don't create spaces for them to just dump all their stuff. I have many stories on this. One in-home client, her husband just was not interested in any sort of order. Everything just kind of like whatever drawer clutter or just stuff was by, he'd just sweep it into a drawer and close the door and be like, I cleaned up. Then she'd like open up her drawer and then she opened up her drawer and found stuff that really shouldn't have been there. So she was like, okay, this is not working. So the reason why he was doing that was because they did have a junk drawer. So when we removed the junk drawer, gave every drawer a purpose, labeled everything, then he wasn't able just to slide things in, because he'd open up the drawer and there were dividers and there were labels. And so then he felt guilty about just sliding things into the drawer once there actually was, something in it that like said that stuff doesn't go there. So then he started sliding it to other places, thinking like he was helping clean up. So they had to label their entire kitchen, pantry, all the bins, everything had labels on it, and it stopped him from kind of like finding junk places just to collect things. So that is one helpful tip. Now, I did have another client, they never used their dining room. And this was a virtual client, never used their dining room. So their dining room ended up being their collection spot for all of their things. And that's what I helped her organize. So her dining room table was just where everyone was just throwing their stuff. There was like stuff to return to Amazon, was their clothing, paperwork, garbage ended up on there just because things just started to pile up. So what we ended up doing, she ended up setting the table, like formally setting the table to stop the family from piling all the stuff on top of there. When she said her kids came home with like papers and stuff they just didn't put away, they went into the dining room and the table was like set super fancy, like what you see online, like when you walk through people's like home tours and they're like, this is my kitchen and it's all set up. So we did that to deter people from dumping stuff on the dining room table because she's like, I'm sick of this. Like, I would like to have a nice meal. So she set up the table like all nice, did like the centerpieces in the middle. It was beautiful. And then the kids were like, oh, well, okay. So then they actually put them away where they were supposed to go. So for messy people, stopping that habit of them, just dumping stuff in one spot by removing it, relocating where something goes, or, even just like decorating your table. Tip number 4, do not nag messy people to like do something. And I can hear my Minnesota accent, so it's NAG. I can hear myself saying it. Do not pester them to get something done. Instead, say, give everyone a job, give them a timeline when it needs to be done, and leave it at that. When you continuously nag, when you continuously like bother them about the particular task, if you have somebody who is more of a like rebel, if any of you are familiar with Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies, highly recommend that. It is a book. She has like a online quiz and everything. I love all of them. She has 4 different personality types, one of them which is a rebel. So whenever you ask a rebel to do something, they're going to do the opposite, which is why nagging doesn't work, especially with teenagers. So instead of doing that, say, okay, this is your job. It needs to be done by this time. And so you make it happen in this time frame. Boom, done. Yes, things don't always work. One of my former in-home clients set this expectation, rule, whatever, job, task, deadline for her daughter. They were trying to give her more and more things to do. So she was in high school. So every family member had to do dinner one night during the week. It could be on the weekend. It could be during the weekday, but just you had to make dinner. So high school daughter was like, okay, it's fine. Like, I don't need to ride to the grocery store like on Sunday when the mom went. She's like, do you want to come to the grocery store with me? She said no. So she's like, okay, fine. Like, your dinner's on Tuesday. Figure it out. Left it at that. Didn't say another word. Her dinner has always been on Tuesday. That one Tuesday, the daughter, it turned 5 o'clock. The family was starting to come home and they're like, oh, I'm so hungry. Can't wait to eat. She didn't go to the grocery store. She didn't get anything. And so instead of nagging, she's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Like, you are the one responsible. You are the one that has to problem solve. And so she had to order the food. She had to go pick it up. She had to like do all of that stuff. And by putting it on them, by like the time was, we eat dinner at 6:30. So at 6:30, we will be eating, and that's just how it is. So ready or not, here it comes. And by doing that, the high schooler had to problem solve and figure out like, okay, well, I have to make this happen because I had a deadline. I didn't follow through on my plan. Following week, she said she went with the family or with mom to the grocery store because, her day was Tuesday to do the food, but she wasn't nagging. It wasn't that kind of thing. So don't nag, set the deadline, and then also set a consequence. With the meal, that was like something that obviously had a consequence just built in. Nobody was going to eat and everyone was going to be really upset with her. if it's something in regards to like toys, your, elementary school kiddo playing with all these toys, all Lego bricks are everywhere, Lego creations are all over the place, and it needs to be cleaned up before bed. That's what you are doing. That's the rule. That's the expectation. Lego bricks need to be done or cleaned up by this time. And because of that, if they're not by the time it's bedtime, then I get to figure out what to do with them that when they're left over. Sometimes those things can go in the garbage. Sometimes they can go in the donation bins. Sometimes I'll just hide them for a while. But that is the consequence of not following through. I'm not nagging. It's a natural consequence that comes with the action. And starting kids young, especially if you consider them messy, starting them young on this task, they are going to be able to be better at time management, which is a skill that they're going to need for the rest of their life. So instead of looking at it like, oh, I'm being hard on my kid, honestly, like with my son, we do this a lot. He's 9. We do this a lot with him so that he can plan out, his time. He has homework he has to do, but he also wants to play with friends. He has activities that he is enrolled in. So he has to plan out his time. And on Sundays, we sit down together as a whole family and we talk about our whole week. What do we have going on so that he's aware of things like when mom and dad can help me and when they can't. And so he's responsible for those tasks. I'm not going to nag him about it. He has to be the one responsible for those type of things. Which lead me to, I didn't number these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on tip number 5. Don't end your request with a question. Stop doing that. Stop saying, it's time to clean up, okay? No, I'm not asking your opinion. It is the time we are going to clean up. I gave you a 5-minute warning, said we are cleaning up now, period, leave it. I do this with my kids. Sometimes it can be considered like harsh because I'm not, whatever. But if they're like, oh, can we have 8 more minutes? And we have time for 8 minutes. Of course, I'm going to say, yes, we can have 8 minutes. It can be a discussion. But when the request is, we are going to bed, when the request is, your stuff is getting in the hallway and you know what the response is, this needs to be cleaned up in an hour, period. You are done. Walk away. And I would recommend doing this with like elementary age kids and up. Toddlers, preschoolers, stop asking the question. Okay, it's time to clean up. Like, stop with the okay. You don't need to say that. We have 5 minutes and then we're going to clean up. I always like to give warnings so it's not a surprise. We are aware of the transition. Put on music when it's time, just something to kind of like ease. That's why like there's the cleanup song for kiddos, because it is a smoother transition, because typically transition times are when kids get out of control because they aren't sure of what actions they should take and they also don't know what's coming next. Give them the heads up, but stop ending with question. You don't need to do that. It's a statement. It is not a question. If it is a question, which would you like to do first? This one or this one? Like, which are you going to pick up? Blocks or cars? That is fine. That's a fine question, but not like, okay, can we clean up now? No, it is not. Unless you are like legit asking them a question and you are okay if they say no. If you are not okay with them saying no, don't ask it as a question. Simple as that. Number 6, stop enabling bad habits. You need to stop doing those tasks for the kids. They need to start doing them on their own. Again, this can seem really harsh. And like, I gotten some people that are like, I don't agree with you on that. Great. I'm glad you don't agree with me on that. Not everybody's going to agree with everything. But for me, there are some habits that just you can't handle, you can't stand, just are not in your like wheelhouse to want to deal with. Okay. So at my kids' school, they starting in first grade, they are supposed to pack their own lunches if they bring lunch from home. Every day they're supposed to do this. This is like, well, technically kindergarten, you're supposed to be doing it, but it is something that they need to be doing on their own. Obviously you help them like cut things up if like they can't cut things, but they're supposed to be packing their lunch. That is a habit. So instead of, instead of like the adult packing the lunch, the kids are supposed to pack the lunch. So we are no longer enabling them to complain about their lunch at school because they didn't pack it. So by doing that and supporting your kids and your expectations, you are going to encourage them to do like tasks you want them to do. So if you say, okay, clean up the basement, and they don't clean up the basement, but then you go and clean it up anyways, well, you're enabling that bad habit. You are enabling that behavior that they they learn quick. Oh, if I don't do this, if I just kind of like wander around, mom's going to do it for me. So don't do it. Don't do it. There was one night we had too much stuff in the basement. I was just over all of the crap, the garbage, just too much stuff. It was after the holidays, and I was like, okay, forget this. Kids were fighting. They didn't want to clean up. They didn't want to put things away. So I was like, okay, you have until this time. Otherwise, I'm throwing everything away. So, and I didn't throw it away. I brought it to the donation center. But time hit. And so then I was like, okay, got a garbage bag, put it all in. Everything that was out, put it all in the thing. The kids were kind of like, oh my gosh. It was nothing major. I would never throw away like their blankies or stuffies or loveys or any of that. But none of that was put away or put into the donation garbage bag. So then after that, they know like, okay, she's serious. I encourage my clients to do this. When my clients actually have, then their kids are like, okay, like it's not just words, there's action being taken by what she's saying so that they are stopping the bad habit and they're actually following through with what they, are saying. 7, have less stuff. Just have less stuff. And then you don't have to worry about your messy people with all the things. So have less stuff. If your kids are not putting away their toys, have less. I have many videos on the research behind less stuff for kids, how it actually supports their brain development, makes them more creative, and less overwhelm. They're better at motor planning. That's when they act out the steps they need to complete a project. So make sure that you just have less stuff. You don't need all the things. If you notice yourself starting to like creep up with stuff, then my next tip is to declutter often. Part with items, let go of things. If you notice something like in your closet that's taking up too much space, or you just don't even like, or you look at it and you're like, I'm never going to fit into that again, donate it. Sell it, get it out of your closet. Stop holding on to things just because it's in your house at this particular moment. It can be hard to let go of things. I do have a brand new workbook on how to get rid of sentimental items. I'll include that down below because sentimental items are something totally different mindset than just kind of like stuff in your house. Tip number 9, only keep things that are necessary. This kind of goes with like have less stuff, declutter often. They're all kind of like the same idea. But when you only keep the items that are necessary or that you need in your house at any particular time, then you are no longer worrying about all the things getting put back into place. Now, we talked about this with your kitchen items. If there is a gadget in your kitchen that can serve the same purpose as some other gadget, like a knife, then why keep the additional gadget if you don't use it consistently? So make sure that you keep the necessities. You don't keep all the things. Teach your kids how to do this. Teach your kids how to only keep the essentials, the necessary items. My kids have, they have specific like areas for their special items. So we have in both of the kids' rooms, they have like bins that can hold like all their items, but it's a designated spot. It is a designated like width, height, all of that, because when they see this is all the space I have for, cards, notes, that kind of thing, then they are going to be able to sift through the items and truly keep the things that are actually special. So they're keeping only the necessities. They're keeping the stuff that truly means something instead of feeling obligated to hold on to all the things. So we're teaching them how to declutter now. So later on in life, they aren't just collecting all the stuff. They're learning the skills that we wished we were taught when we were younger. Finally, my 10th tip is to create checklists and put rules all over the house for what you expect from your family. When I talk about, the rules, expectations, checklists, all of that kind of stuff. So to do that, write down everything you want the kids to know. Write it all down on all the checklists. Again, in my shop, I do have fun, colorful checklists and stuff. I will include that below as well. Write down all the things you want the kids to do in specific areas. Don't do it for like all over the house. Set it like, okay, in the kitchen, these are the rules of the kitchen. Write it down, no more than 5. Write it down, hang it up. And then you have to follow through with that expectation, which we talked about in an earlier video. So make sure to watch that when we talk about expectations. So use those checklists for your messy people, because like the rules or the checklist, they're the same thing. Like I like checklists in playrooms. I like checklists in bedrooms, rules for kind of like shared spaces. It's kind of like what we do. I have had clients that, prefer the rules. Some clients with ADHD, rules work well for them because they're set more. Kiddos with autism, it could work having specific rules, kind of more structured thinkers do well with rules. They they feel confident and structured in kind of like, this is my box. And so this is what I know I can and can't do. So know your family and decide which one would work better for them. I have a kid that loves rules. I have a kid that loves checklists. So we have both. But know your kids and know your husband, know your spouse, know your significant other, know your roommates, figure out what works for them. And when all else fails, have a conversation. Every Sunday, we have been doing kind of like our family meeting where we go through our schedules. We kind of like talk about what's happening in the week. You can also, in addition to that, like we write it all down so everybody knows what they're doing. Everyone has to be responsible for their own stuff. Obviously, we will be responsible for it too, but I think the kids need to know they have to also be responsible on like, okay, total aside story. I was responsible for the calendar and forgot that flag football game was not at 12 o'clock, it was at 11 o'clock. Had it in the calendar, but I didn't check it and had a bunch of other stuff going on. Totally didn't go through my mind. My son missed the game because I was the one responsible. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, you need to know, you have to get yourself breakfast in the morning. You have to get yourself dressed in the morning. That shouldn't be on me on Saturday morning. No, not doing that. This was an activity you wanted to do, so it's on you. And now he knows every Sunday we talk about what time his game is on Sunday or Saturday. So he knows he is ready for it. He's prepared. He gets himself breakfast. He gets himself dressed. He makes sure all of his stuff is ready by the time he has to leave. So by doing that, I am now, able to support him by our Sunday meetings. But we also can go through and you share how you feel when your house is messy. You share, I feel like back when we were in elementary school, we learned like the I feel statements. I feel upset when the house is messy. I would like for these things to happen. Can we make this happen? If your family's like, no, then be like, well, what can you do so that I can feel comfortable in my house? You have to have that open dialogue with your family. It is not always easy and it can be super awkward at first because you're like, okay, we never have done this. And now I have, older kids, but you can still share all of your thoughts and feelings with them so that they know why and where you're coming from. What I found most of the time when you have messy people in your house and then you share your thoughts, feelings, whatever with them, they don't realize how their mess is actually affecting you. And when you do that, they will notice, they will change things so that they can make you feel better in the house. One in-home client, she said she didn't care if the basement was a mess. She could care less about what the basement looked like. They had like a little art room. She didn't care about that. Her living room, she wanted all the pillows and blankets off the floor. That was like her biggest request. She just couldn't handle it. So I suggested the family meeting, gave her like some tips and stuff. She did that, and the kids had no idea. They're like, oh, well, you don't expect it in the basement. And she said, well, can we just start doing it? After that meeting, the kids would just always do it. And then they started doing it in the basement too. And she was like, oh, that was like a nice, little thing that she saw. But just sharing your thoughts and your feelings with the messy people. My family knows when the house is disorganized, I don't have as much patience. And I've shared this with them. Like when the house is messy, I don't feel like I have patience to deal with things. I feel very anxious. So they know this. So they know when I'm like, okay, please clean up. They can see that like mom's starting to get anxious and it's making me uncomfortable. So they help clean up, and they know that because we've had the conversation. So have the conversation with the messy people and just tell them how you feel. And you will be surprised when you see that, small changes will actually happen. So try one of these 10 strategies to living with messy people. If you want to join on my free 30-day organizing challenge, every day it's a different area, click the link below. Tomorrow, I am going to be live here on YouTube, and I'll be on TikTok going live, decluttering and organizing our garage, getting it ready for winter. So you can come along with me as we go through this entire process of decluttering. We're going to do it live. The video that I was supposed to film and record lost sound. So we're doing it live. So I hope to see you there. All right.